Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Do any of you like puzzles or codes? I sure do. Well, Tai Chi you can think of like a movement code that teaches you patterns of movement that come from your core that help you to learn healthy ways of moving your body and keeping your spine and other joints aligned. In one of my previous videos, I compared Tai Chi to the reverse Mr. Miyagi method. Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid, where he teaches Daniel-san some simple movements in regular everyday life, like waxing on and waxing off a car. And then after repeating those movements hundreds and hundreds of times, where it sinks into his body, he's then able to translate that into martial arts movements like blocking. Well, in Tai Chi, we're kind of doing the opposite. We're practicing Tai Chi movements and we do the movements over and over again until the patterns subconsciously sink into our mind-body connection. We are then able to apply those movements, even if we don't really know what we're doing, to our daily routine, like walking, climbing hills or stairs, going down hills or stairs, and we find ourselves able to do it with better balance, better fluidity, and lower impact on our joints. And that is why Tai Chi has been found to be the most helpful exercise for preventing falls in the elderly and helping people to learn how to move better in their daily lives. So I'm very happy to be able to bring you now the Tai Chi 108 form, Yang Style. That is my favorite Tai Chi form. I've already put on the channel the Tai Chi 24 form, and this is going to be the first video of the Tai Chi Yang Style 108 form. This is the long form where we're going to see a lot of different movements and learn how to do them, not just by watching and repeating, but in the Tai Chi code sense, we're going to do that, but I'm also going to be demonstrating exactly how we move the waist to create the movements and exactly how we utilize our hip muscles to power the movement. If you're new to the channel and you like the content, make sure to click the like button on the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Also, drop me a comment and let me know what you think. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do in this video is go through the first couple movements of the form, which is the opening posture, step out to left ward off, and grasp the sparrow's tail. I like to think of these as one long combination of movements, and it's a really great movement to start with because it goes through all 8 of the major techniques in Tai Chi, which I'll explain to you at the end of the video. I'm going to do it in several different views, so you can see a follow along view, you can also see a side view, and then a straight ahead view. I am also going to demonstrate 2 distinct ways of doing the form taught in different schools, because when you see the different ways of doing it, you'll learn some different types of patterns of movement and see how changing your pattern of core movement changes the nature of the technique. So let's begin. I'm going to put some of the demonstrations at the end of the video so we don't draw it out too long in the beginning before I can get into some of the instruction. So now I want to get into the instruction of what we're doing to make the movements happen. And before I do that, I want to go through some principles that we want to follow to make sure we're practicing our Tai Chi correctly. The first principle I want to review is that all movements are guided by our waist and powered by our hips. So we are constantly having to move our waist, which includes our upper and lower waist, in order to guide where the movement's going. And we are powering every movement with our hips, either with flexing the hip this way or extending the hip that way. If the hip is on the ground, I could flex the hip this way, or I can extend the hip that way. Those are two different ways of powering the movement. And depending on how we rotate the waist and how we power from the hips, that is going to determine what the movement is that we're doing. And with each overall technique, what we're doing is sequencing multiple patterns of core movement together. Now that we know where we're moving from, we need to know that one of the other things we want to do is try to maintain vertical posture at all times. There are some Tai Chi practitioners who do have a forward lean, but I was taught and do think it's part of the principles that we should maintain vertical posture at all times, and that's going to do well for you if you're trying to apply these techniques to normal daily movements like walking, because we should be vertical at all times when we are walking. So now let's get into the movements, and I'm not going to go through the technique for the opening posture. I'm going to get into the technique once we start moving side to side, backwards and forwards, because it's going to be much easier for you to feel what's going on in the core and understand what I'm saying. So we're going to begin from here, and the first thing we're going to do is the pivot into the step out. So we have our center of gravity between the 2 feet, and we're going to shift weight onto my left leg. And so if you step out with your left leg to begin the form, that's the leg we're going to be shifting towards, releasing the other leg from the ground. And it's going to look like this. The forward foot, which is the one you're going to be moving onto, is going to turn out a full 90 degrees as your weight sits back on the rear leg. And if you use your core correctly, it's going to occur in 2 separate movements of the core. The first movement is going to begin as you start the shift by raising the right arm, and the left hand is going to turn this way with a supination of the forearm, rotating like that as you begin the shift. So that is the first part of a 2-part movement to do the pivot. From here to here. So you notice I've only shifted halfway. Half of my weight is off of the right leg and onto the left leg. And then to finish, we have to do another movement of the core to get our weight fully off of the right leg and onto the left leg. And that's going to allow the right leg to pivot out with the foot now facing in the direction we're going to be going. Let me talk briefly about the root that we're using through the movement. The root is controlled by our lower abdominal waist rotation, turning either to the left or to the right. And when we rotate the lower abs towards one side, we're rooting that leg and we're removing the root from the other leg. And this is going to be a good rule of thumb, that as you step onto one leg and step out with another leg, your lower abs are going to be activated or turning towards the leg that you're standing on, freeing up the other leg to move. We can think of this in two ways. One is belly button rotation, because your belly button is going to go, at least energetically, in the direction of the leg you're rooting towards. So if I try to root my left leg, think of turning your belly button to the left. And the other thing that the root or lower abs does is tuck your pelvis under like this. And so you should think of tucking on the side where the root's going and turning your belly button towards that side. So in this case, we're going to be rooting the left leg as we do this movement, removing the root from the right. So my belly button is energetically turning to the left as this happens. And then I'm going to continue turning the root towards the left as I finish the motion. So what is the difference between the first half and the second half? The difference is in the upper waist rotation. In the Tai Chi code and the walking code, I call that the direction. The upper waist controls the direction of movement. So as we begin the movement, rooting on the left, I'm turning the upper waist to the right. That is going to allow me to begin the pivot, but not completely take energy or weight off the right leg, because I'm turning into the right leg, keeping some energy pressing down into the floor. So to finally remove the right leg completely, I turn the upper waist all the way to the left, freeing up the right leg. So what's creating the energy for the pivot? That is the hip actions or the hip power. We're doing hip flexion on the right throughout this whole movement. Hip flexion is lifting your hip up this way. Hip extension is the opposite, extending the hip back that way. When we have one leg on the ground, that hip flexion, which would look something like this, creates a rotational energy towards that hip. So if you just think about the hip flexing, you can see how that by itself has a pulling action towards that hip. The opposite that would occur with extending the hip, which would push the body in a rotational way away from that push. So as we are doing these rotations of the waist, lower waist going to the left the whole time, upper waist going to the right and then to the left, the hip is pulling us around to the right the whole time. So that creates this motion and then this motion. Once we're here, we're going to shift our weight to the right leg and step out to the left, again taking two separate movements of the core. For those of you interested in the full core movement breakdown for the sequence, I'm going to continue the analysis over on my website in the Tai Chi Code course. Click the link above or the one in the description section. There are many Tai Chi videos already available there, as well as Tai Chi Code movement theory. I'll be posting new excerpts of this 108 form series weekly until we have reviewed each of the 108 movements in detail. For those of you staying on YouTube, I'll now demonstrate both versions of the sequence from the rear view so you can practice along. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we continue on to single whip.